In the neglected archives of the Wisconsin Diocese, there exists a collection of records the Catholic Church has quietly tried to conceal for more than 160 years. These documents describe the unexplained disappearance of 23 nuns from St. Mary's Convent near Lake Michigan between 1854 and 1862. Church officials have long dismissed these files as clerical mistakes or misunderstood reports, yet testimony from 3 separate diocesan inspectors, combined with a recently uncovered bundle of private correspondence found sealed inside a wall during renovations, reveals a far darker narrative. It is a story so disturbing that even seasoned historians have questioned whether such cruelty could truly occur within sacred walls. What follows is the first complete account of what many believe to be the most horrifying case of religious corruption in American history, a case the Catholic Church has spent enormous resources ensuring would never surface. Before we continue with the story of St. Mary's Convent, I must ask that if you already find this account unsettling, please subscribe to our channel for more historically accurate explorations into America's darkest religious secrets. Our community of truth seekers spans all 50 states. Where are you listening from tonight? Let us know in the comments. Now, let us return to the Wisconsin countryside in 1854, where this story begins. Morning fog clung thickly to Lake Michigan as Bishop William Quarter's carriage passed through the iron gates of what would soon become St. Mary's Convent. The Catholic Church had purchased the expansive estate, once belonging to a wealthy lumber baron, surrounded by 30 acres of dense forest, with the goal of establishing the first major Catholic institution in the largely Protestant Wisconsin territory. This move was part of a broader strategy to expand Catholic influence across America's fast-growing frontier, where Protestant denominations had already established strong roots. The limestone mansion, with its 3 imposing wings and tall bell tower, stood in stark contrast to the modest wooden churches scattered across the Wisconsin landscape. Built in 1842, the central structure featured narrow Gothic windows and heavy arches that seemed to watch over the surrounding land. 2 wings extended outward, the eastern wing intended for the nuns' living quarters, and the western wing planned for an orphanage and infirmary. Behind the main building stood a small chapel, its spire rising above the treetops, visible for miles across the flat plains. Local Protestant families regarded the arriving nuns with deep suspicion. Their black habits and Irish accents marked them as outsiders among a population dominated by German and Scandinavian settlers. Most residents were Lutheran or Methodist, accustomed to simple church structures and communal decision-making. Catholicism, with its hierarchy, rituals, and secrecy, felt foreign and unsettling. On the day of the convent's consecration, a small crowd gathered near the gates. "Papists," muttered Elijah Hoffman, a respected elder of the local Lutheran church, as he watched the robed figures walk toward the chapel. "They will bring their foreign ways here and corrupt our children with idolatry." His companion Wilhelm Schmidt nodded grimly, saying his grandfather had fled Germany to escape Catholic persecution, only to see it follow them to America. Though not everyone shared these views, such sentiments reflected the deep religious tension that would later shape the tragedy. "St. Mary's will stand as a beacon of God's mercy in this wilderness," Bishop Quarter proclaimed to the gathered clergy and local officials during the consecration. His voice echoed through the newly finished chapel as morning light streamed through simple stained glass windows, casting colored patterns across the wooden pews. Under the leadership of Mother Superior Catherine Murphy, this convent will shelter orphans, comfort widows, and heal the sick. His Boston accent echoed as he introduced the 3 women chosen to lead the convent: Mother Superior Catherine, Sister Elizabeth Foster, and Sister Margaret Clark, all transferred from established Eastern convents. Mother Superior Catherine stood tall and commanding in her immaculate black habit, her sharp features and penetrating gaze demanding immediate respect. At 42, she carried herself with the confidence of someone used to authority. Her hands, graceful yet firm, seemed equally capable of soothing a child or enforcing discipline. Many remarked on her pale blue eyes, eyes that appeared to see through pretense. Mother Catherine comes to us with the highest recommendations, the bishop continued, noting her work at St. Augustine's in Boston had prepared her for the challenges of frontier religious life. Sister Elizabeth, 38, with her constant smile and gentle voice, was assigned to oversee the orphanage. Soft-spoken and maternal, with rosy cheeks and warm hands, she appeared ideally suited to caring for children. She spoke carefully, often pausing before each word, a habit initially mistaken for thoughtfulness rather than calculation. Sister Margaret, 35, tall and thin with a serious demeanor, was tasked with establishing the infirmary. Her nimble fingers and precise movements reflected her deep knowledge of herbal medicine. Her dark eyes observed everything, and her expertise in both traditional remedies and emerging medical practices had impressed physicians in major eastern cities. 20 younger nuns, most in their 20s and newly arrived from Ireland, completed the founding group. They stood in orderly lines as Bishop Quarter blessed each by name, young women who had left family and homeland to serve God in an unfamiliar land. Though solemn during the ceremony, their youth and uncertainty occasionally showed when they believed themselves unseen. That evening, Mother Catherine addressed her sisters by candlelight in the refectory, long shadows dancing along the stone walls, as the scent of fresh bread and weak tea filled the air. The chill of the Wisconsin autumn seeped inside, despite the roaring fireplace. "The Lord has called us to this wilderness," she said. "We will face hardships unknown to our sisters in the East. We will meet suspicion from those who fear our faith. But through devotion and sacrifice, we will endure." The young nuns clung to her words, far from home in a strange land. Later that night, Sister Agnes whispered to Sister Bernadette as they lay in their narrow dormitory beds, separated by barely an arm's length. "Do you think the locals will ever accept us?" she asked softly. Sister Bernadette squeezed her hand and replied that even people once feared Christ, and that kindness would show their intentions. Their conversation ended abruptly at the sound of footsteps in the corridor. Mother Catherine was making her rounds. The convent soon settled into routine. Days began with matins at 3 a.m, bells cutting through the darkness, calling sleepy nuns from warm beds to cold chapel floors. Latin chants echoed through the chapel 7 times daily, becoming as familiar as the wind through the pines or the distant lowing of cattle. Between prayers, the sisters tended the orphanage, cared for the sick, and maintained large vegetable gardens. Their lives followed a strict rhythm designed to focus the spirit on service rather than comfort. By winter of 1854, 12 children lived in the orphanage, mostly orphans of Irish laborers killed in railroad and lumber accidents. Sister Elizabeth cared for them tenderly, teaching basic lessons alongside Catholic doctrine. Sister Margaret's infirmary quickly earned respect, her herbal remedies proving effective during the harsh winter months. Even skeptics began to acknowledge the convent's usefulness. Yet beneath the surface, subtle changes were taking place. Mother Catherine's leadership grew harsher. Minor rule violations brought severe punishments. Silence at meals became oppressive. Recreation hours grew tense. Laughter vanished. The first disappearance occurred in April 1855, when Sister Agnes failed to appear for morning prayers. Mother Catherine calmly announced she had been transferred to a mission in Minnesota. No farewell, no packing witnessed, only an empty space in the chapel. Questions were silenced by her authority. Soon after, Sister Bernadette vanished, then others. Each time, explanations involved distant missions or retreats. Letters sent to families returned with oddly formal replies, later proven to be written by the same hand. Inside the convent, fear grew. By 1857, only 12 of the original 20 nuns remained. Punishments escalated. Confessions became humiliating. Fasting and cold stone vigils weakened bodies. One night in January 1858, Sister Mary Collins awoke to sobbing from the neighboring cell, followed by Mother Catherine's whispered threat. Footsteps, dragging sounds, and then silence followed. By morning, Sister Rebecca had allegedly been sent to a frontier mission. That afternoon, Sister Mary overheard a conversation through a partially closed door. Words about prices, innocence, timing, and buyers revealed a horrifying truth. The missing nuns were being sold. Terrified, Sister Mary secretly sent a note to Father Thomas Ryan through a local boy, warning him of the evil at St. Mary's. Father Ryan, already uneasy, traveled to Milwaukee to alert Bishop John Henney. As he explained the disappearances and presented Sister Mary's note, the bishop's expression shifted from warmth to guarded restraint. "These are serious accusations, Father," he said carefully, and that was where the church's long silence truly began. Setting aside the silver cross without giving it close inspection, the bishop spoke calmly. "Mother Catherine has explained each transfer to my satisfaction." "But Your Excellency," Father Ryan pressed, 8 nuns have vanished in less than 3 years. No formal documentation exists for these transfers, and no consistent letters have been received from these women after their supposed departures. "Frontier missions require educated sisters," the bishop replied firmly, rising from his chair to signal the meeting's end. "I will not tolerate rumors that could harm the Church's standing in this Protestant territory. Mother Catherine has been exceedingly generous to our cathedral construction fund, and her spiritual leadership is beyond question." As he escorted Father Ryan toward the door, his tone sharpened with warning. "Tend to your parish responsibilities, Father Ryan. Matters of convent governance are entrusted to those appointed by God." Father Ryan left the bishop's office discouraged but resolute. If official channels would not confront the issue, he would have to seek the truth by other means. His chance came in March 1858, when Bishop Henney assigned him to collect annual financial reports from parishes and religious institutions across the diocese. This task gave him legitimate access to St. Mary's records and perhaps answers about the missing sisters. The March winds cut through his heavy coat as his horse-drawn buggy approached the convent. St. Mary's appeared altered, the gardens poorly kept, the windows dark despite the gentle spring weather that should have drawn the sisters outside. The bell tower rang less frequently now, its sound dull and subdued. Sister Elizabeth greeted him at the door, her customary warmth strained. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her habit showed signs of neglect. "Father Ryan, we weren't expecting you today," she said, surprise poorly masked. "Mother Catherine is unwell," she added, guiding him into a cold parlor rather than the usual study. "She requests you leave the diocesan forms, and she will complete them by week's end." The bishop's instructions were explicit, Father Ryan insisted, removing his coat and setting his case down. "This year I am required to review the records personally. Irregularities have been discovered elsewhere." Sister Elizabeth's smile faded. "That will not be possible today. Our bookkeeper, Sister Margaret, is tending to a dying child in the infirmary." "Then I shall wait," Father Ryan replied firmly. "Or perhaps I might tour the convent while I do. The orphanage improvements have been much discussed." A flicker crossed Sister Elizabeth's face, fear or anger before vanishing. "As you wish, Father, though I must ask you avoid the north wing. Influenza cases are present." The north wing, always forbidden, deepened his unease. The tour revealed troubling inconsistencies. Only 7 orphans were present instead of the 20 reported. The children appeared thin and fearful. When Father Ryan attempted to speak with one child, Sister Elizabeth intervened quickly. The infirmary held only 3 elderly patients, none seriously ill, and Sister Margaret was nowhere to be found. Most alarming was the reduced number of nuns. Only 8 were present, far fewer than he remembered. When Father Ryan asked about familiar names, Sister Rebecca, Sister Josephine, Sister Clare, the answers were vague. And Sister Mary Collins, he asked casually near the laundry room, where two nuns worked in silence. Sister Elizabeth hesitated. Sister Mary has been assigned to St. Louis. She left last week. Father Ryan concealed his alarm. The author of the desperate message was gone. Before leaving, he asked to visit the chapel. Dust coated the altar rails. Candlesticks were dull. Flowers wilted. The space felt hollow. While Sister Elizabeth was briefly distracted, Father Ryan slipped through a side door into the residential wing. The corridor was unnaturally silent. Many cells stood empty. Then he heard it, a faint sound, half whimper, half moan, from behind a heavy door secured with an iron lock. He approached cautiously. "Is someone there?" he whispered. A weak voice answered. "Father, please help us." Before he could reply, Mother Catherine's voice rang sharply behind him. "This area is strictly cloistered. Your presence is inappropriate." She stood flanked by Sister Margaret and a large man in laborer's clothing, his thick arms and grim expression unmistakably threatening. "Forgive me, Mother," Father Ryan said, steadying his voice. "I lost my way." Mother Catherine's pale eyes studied him coldly. "This wing houses sisters under special spiritual discipline. Their isolation is necessary." "I heard cries for help," Father Ryan said. "Sister Anne is engaged in advanced devotional practices," Sister Margaret replied smoothly. "Such exercises can sound distressing to the untrained ear." "Mr. Callahan will escort you out," Mother Catherine said curtly. The burly man stepped forward, gripping Father Ryan's arm with unnecessary force. As he was led away, Father Ryan glanced once more at the locked door. She had said us. How many women were imprisoned there? Once beyond the gates, Father Ryan urged his horse into a gallop. Everything pointed to unspeakable evil. Knowing Bishop Henney would not act, he sent an urgent telegram to Archbishop John Hughes in New York, detailing disappearances, imprisonment, and imminent danger. Archbishop Hughes responded swiftly. Without notifying Bishop Henney, he sent his secretary, Monsignor Patrick Kelly, to conduct an unannounced inspection. Kelly arrived April 17, 1858, with Father Ryan and two senior priests. Though the day was bright, dread hung over the convent. Ravens circled the bell tower. Mother Catherine appeared shaken upon seeing the official robes and sealed documents. Nuns hurried anxiously. Smoke from burning papers drifted from the kitchen. "Protocols require advance notice," Mother Catherine protested. "That is precisely why none was given," Monsignor Kelly replied calmly, presenting the Archbishop's letter authorizing full inspection. After tense resistance, the inspection proceeded. The locked north wing revealed 5 imprisoned nuns, malnourished, abused, including Sister Rebecca. One was heavily pregnant. The room stank of filth and despair. Monsignor Kelly crossed himself in horror. Sister Rebecca whispered of a doctor, of men paying for nuns, for brides of Christ. Elsewhere, priests uncovered drugs, ledgers and coded financial records, revealing payments tied to disappearances. Testimony revealed Mother Catherine, Sister Elizabeth, and Sister Margaret were impostors who had seized control after poisoning the real Mother Superior. The convent served as a front for trafficking nuns and orphaned girls to brothels. Those who resisted were assaulted or killed. Bodies were buried in the garden. By nightfall, the convent was shut down, survivors removed and arrests ordered. Yet Callahan fled, and Mother Catherine and Sister Margaret vanished mysteriously. Only Sister Elizabeth remained, found catatonic. Subsequent investigations exposed over $100,000 in profits and confirmed 23 nuns and 17 orphan girls trafficked. Shallow graves were uncovered. Sister Mary Collins was among the dead, likely killed after seeking help. Sister Elizabeth died in an asylum. Mother Catherine and Sister Margaret were never captured. And, with their disappearance, the Church ensured the truth would remain buried for generations. Avenged in the eyes of God, and the guilty have either disappeared or faced earthly consequences. The Church's priority remains the protection of the faithful and the preservation of the institution. Public disclosure of these documents could spark scandal and division rather than justice, yet the echoes of St. Mary's refuse to fade entirely. The victims' suffering, recorded in diaries, letters, and whispered testimonies, continues to haunt the collective memory of those aware of the truth. Each survivor carried a burden invisible to the world, their trauma silenced by vows, by secrecy, and by the very institution that had failed them. The orphanage established in Milwaukee, built with funds once tainted by evil, served as a partial redemption, but it could never erase the horror endured by those trapped in the North Wing, those sold, abused, or murdered. The clandestine network that Mother Catherine and Sister Margaret had woven across the Midwest left scars far beyond Wisconsin. Even after the initial raids and arrests, disappearances persisted, and rumors of similar operations circulated quietly for decades. Authorities, constrained by social hierarchies and powerful connections, were rarely able to follow the trail. Survivors, if they spoke at all, risked censure, disbelief, or further exploitation. Father Thomas Ryan's journals, finally discovered decades later, provide the clearest window into the psychological toll of St. Mary's. His words convey not only the horrors he witnessed, but also the persistent moral questions that lingered long after the convent was shuttered. "I cannot forget their faces," he wrote. "Their voices echo in my sleep. Who will speak for them when we are gone? Has God forgiven the Church for its silence?" Even in death, he seemed to wrestle with the knowledge that institutional preservation often outweighed individual justice. Sister Rebecca Murphy, under the name Rachel Martin, left behind one of the few contemporary public accounts, The Dark Convent, a work denounced and suppressed, yet the narrative aligns precisely with official reports. Her courage, though largely erased by time, remains a testament to resistance in the face of overwhelming systemic failure. Sister Anne Sullivan's quiet advocacy similarly represents an unrecorded lineage of resilience, showing that even within oppressive structures, some sought to protect the innocent and prevent future atrocities. The unanswered questions remain staggering. How many women and girls disappeared without record? How many victims were lost to distant brothels or sent overseas? The identities and fates of Mother Catherine and Sister Margaret remain a historical void, their ultimate judgment a mystery. The sporadic reports, from Havana to Veracruz, from San Francisco to New Orleans, hint at the breadth of their network, a web extending far beyond the convent walls. The St. Mary's case also illuminates the systemic failures that allowed the horrors to continue: unchecked authority, enforced silence, complicity through negligence, and societal structures that prioritized reputation over justice. Archbishop Hughes's private letters reveal awareness of these failures, yet practical reforms were minimal. Even today, St. Mary's serves as a warning. Institutional power, when unchallenged, can conceal unimaginable abuse. Physical traces have vanished. The convent buildings replaced by suburban developments, graves unmarked, records heavily redacted, but fragments endure: letters, journals, oral histories, and archival documents. These remnants tell a story not only of cruelty and corruption, but also of extraordinary courage, of individuals who resisted in whatever ways they could, preserving memory against enforced silence. Father Ryan's final plea, preserved in his journals, remains a guiding testament. Remember them. Remember their names. Remember their suffering. Their lives mattered. Through that remembrance, the lessons of St. Mary's persist: vigilance against abuse, questioning of unchecked authority, and the moral duty to protect the vulnerable, even when the structures around us encourage silence. The story of St. Mary's Convent is both a cautionary tale and a tribute to the victims, to the survivors who resisted, and to those who continue to uncover the truth. It reminds us that evil can hide behind the most sacred facades and that justice often requires courage beyond the ordinary. As long as their names are spoken, as long as the history is remembered, the light of truth endures, however faintly, against the shadows of silence. Do you think all the secrets of St. Mary's have been revealed, or are there still shadows hidden beneath Wisconsin's soil? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Share this story with someone who loves true historical mysteries and subscribe to explore more dark tales from America's past. Called home to God's mercy, perhaps the greatest service to both the victims and history is to ensure that such darkness never takes root again. Mary Callahan's attempts to bring the documents to public attention were repeatedly thwarted. Newspaper editors refused to publish her story, citing lack of evidence. When she tried to self-publish a pamphlet, the printer mysteriously backed out after visits from men in clerical attire. Her home was broken into twice, though nothing of apparent value was taken. Finally, in 1892, she entrusted copies of the most significant documents to her nephew, instructing him to preserve them for future generations. In 1908, a fire in the Baltimore Diocesan Records Room destroyed numerous historical documents, including reportedly the entire Callahan portfolio. Church officials called it an unfortunate accident, though former employees later claimed it was suspiciously contained to specific sections. I was instructed to ensure those specific documents were stored together against all proper archival practice, wrote Thomas Moran, a former diocesan archivist, in a deathbed statement recorded by his son. When the fire occurred, it consumed exactly those shelves, and no others. Draw your own conclusions. The final confirmed chapter of the St. Mary's saga came in 1912. Workers renovating an abandoned mansion in Veracruz, Mexico, discovered a hidden room containing the mummified remains of two elderly women. Among their possessions were Catholic religious items, forged identification documents in multiple names, substantial currency, and a small golden locket containing a miniature painting of St. Mary's Convent, as it appeared in the 1850s. The bodies were seated facing each other, with tea set before them. Local physicians identified traces of a powerful plant-based poison. Whether this was suicide or murder remains unknown. Survivors of St. Mary's later identified personal items as belonging to Mother Catherine Murphy and Sister Margaret Clark. A leather-bound journal suggested that the women had continued their operations in Mexico for nearly 2 decades. References to acquisitions, placements, and special clients mirrored the coded language used at St. Mary's. The final entry, dated the apparent day of their deaths, read, "He comes tonight. We have failed him for the last time." Whether he was a human accomplice or something more esoteric remains one of the enduring mysteries of the case. Beneath the mansion garden, authorities discovered at least 12 more young women buried, likely victims lured from poor families under the guise of religious or domestic opportunity. The evil that began in Wisconsin had migrated south, spreading like a hidden cancer. The American Catholic Church's response was muted, emphasizing only that the deceased were excommunicated and acting without sanction, with no mention of trafficking or abuse. Today, a small memorial garden in Milwaukee, established anonymously in 2010, honors the forgotten women of St. Mary's. No official recognition accompanies it, yet each spring flowers appear mysteriously, perhaps left by descendants of those who resisted the darkness. Amateur historians researching the case report disappearing records, revoked access, strange disturbances, and even intimidation. Someone, it seems, still does not want this story fully told. The Wisconsin countryside has long reclaimed the land where St. Mary's once stood. New communities, new churches, new generations have risen, unaware of the horrors that occurred beneath their soil. Yet on foggy autumn nights, locals sometimes report faint sounds, women's voices chanting prayers or muffled cries for help. Whether these are tricks of the wind or echoes of the past is for each listener to decide. In 2018, construction workers uncovered a small metal box near the former convent containing a rosary, a folded habit veil, and a handwritten list of 23 names with the simple inscription, "Remember Us." County officials turned the items over to diocesan archives, where they reportedly remain uncatalogued and inaccessible. The family of Jimmy Fletcher, the farm boy who delivered Sister Mary's desperate note to Father Ryan, continues to preserve a small memorial in their farmhouse kitchen, a silver cross, and a handwritten list of the nuns' names. Great-great-grandpa Jimmy said we should never forget those ladies. Current Patriarch Robert Fletcher told a local newspaper in 2020. Those women lived, they suffered, they mattered. Between 1854 and 1862, within the supposedly sacred confines of a Wisconsin convent, human evil reached extraordinary depths. That such evil was possible, and that the systems meant to prevent it instead enabled it, is a sobering reminder of both our capacity for depravity and our responsibility to remember. The true horror of St. Mary's may lie not in the limestone walls themselves, but in how easily the story was erased from history. Remember Sister Agnes, Sister Bernarde, Sister Teresa, and all the others. Remember that they lived, that they suffered, and that their suffering mattered. The story of St. Mary's Convent is not just a tale of horror. It is a reminder of the human capacity for both cruelty and courage. It teaches us that blind obedience, secrecy, and institutional protection can allow evil to flourish, and that justice is often delayed when power shields wrongdoing. Yet it also shows the resilience of those who endured, who survived, and who bore witness despite fear and suppression. The moral is clear. Vigilance is required to protect the innocent, and silence in the face of wrongdoing perpetuates harm. Institutions, no matter how sacred or respected, must be held accountable. And above all, every human life matters. Every story deserves to be remembered. Remember the victims, honor the survivors, and let their suffering guide us to act with courage, compassion, and unwavering commitment to truth.